Memory is the term given to the processes included in the encoding, creating and changing, storing, and subsequent retrieving of information and past experiences. Focusing primarily on the idea of long-term memories, by presenting individuals with a distorted representation of past events, there are moments in people's lives when the recollection of personal fragmented memories could provide them with a comforting form of psychological escapism. Using examples from both Anne Schwatzky and Michael Levin, this presentation will examine the relationship between the remembrance of long-term reverie memories and a reconnection to lost loved ones through the use of landscape photographs as memory triggers and tools for recollection. Reverie memories, as described by Owen Jones when discussing Chris Philo's paper, To Go Back Up the Side Hill, Memories, Imaginations and Reveries of Childhood, are episodes of memory when we somehow travel back, a state where consciousness can slip back towards a more dreamlike state and can begin to drift back into all the remembered spaces, events and feelings which are in our minds. Reverie memories are also usually associated with pleasant past experiences and can be identified as the type of memory that encapsulates a positive emotional attachment. Once retrieved, reverie memories can therefore be seen as a psychological connection to people's lost loved ones through providing them with the opportunity to experience the presence of the missed individual in a fabricated version of an event in the past. However, over time, memories tend to fade and appear to travel down the route of the forgotten. So how do people access these reverie memories that could reconnect them to those that they miss? Although it is a common concern that memories of the absent will eventually be lost over time, Paul Ricoeur argues, many memories, perhaps among the most precious childhood memories, have not been definitively erased, but simply rendered inaccessible, unavailable, which makes us say that one forgets less than one thinks or fears. Memories are therefore never truly forgotten, because conforming to its description as a storehouse for memory, the brain has the ability to organise stored information into appropriate memory systems for future retrieval. According to the Freudian theory of fantasy, most memories, including long-term reverie memories, are therefore stored within a cognitive area known as the preconsciousness. Not conscious, but which may emerge into consciousness under favourable conditions. These particular fading reverie memories, as with most other long-term memories, can therefore begin to be recovered by the individual's consciousness through the introduction to a primary favourable condition or memory trigger. Memory triggers can therefore begin to challenge people's preconceived interpretation that the past and the present are unrelated. Acting as present traces of the past, memory triggers, which vary in form depending on the individual and the memory they wish to retrieve, provide people with access to the past by initiating their process of remembrance. These memory triggers are usually associated with the long-term memory the individual is trying to recover, and it is often the act of consciously recognising and repeating the use of a memory trigger that results in the activation of a memory pathway into the preconsciousness through independent recollection. Henry Bergson, when discussing recognition within independent recollection, proposes that, at other times recognition, implies an effort of the mind which seeks in the past, in order to apply them to the present, those representations which are best able to enter into the present situation. An individual's mind therefore sees into the past on the basis of vestige, by searching for representational aspects of the present, memory triggers, that have also been experienced in the past. This theory offers one of the reasons why photographs of landscapes can act as such powerful memory triggers. However, in order to understand this concept fully, ideas surrounding the creating and encoding of the memory at the time of the past event need to be briefly re-examined. As the individual experiences the event, the mind collects and processes information from each of their sensory inputs before adapting or encoding the sensory information to enable its storage within the appropriate memory system. When this individual then experiences a present representation or acting memory trigger of one of these stored pieces of information, the mind then actively searches through previously stored associated information that now act as mediators to the memory. This enables the mind to advance down a complex memory pathway constructed by the associative information through the preconsciousness, resulting in the fragmented retrieval of the memory in question. Placing landscape photograph memory triggers within the context of the psychological process, photographs have the ability to assist the recollection of a reverie memory through the concept of the photographic trace. Although some landscapes progress through stages of change, photography has the ability to freeze a moment in time, creating a window into the past through the representation of what has already been. This allows the individual viewing the image to experience a strong visual representation of the past event, which has been encoded and stored within a reverie memory. This in turn facilitates the mind's ability to search for stored remnants of associated information, which results in the quicker progression through the complex memory pathway to the scattered recollection of the altered memory. Anne Shawotsky considered these ideas of vestige, representations, in independent recollection, and concepts surrounding constructive memory pathways throughout her project When I Was a Girl. Deviating from the idea of using landscape photographs as memory triggers, Shawotsky examined the remembrance and reconnection to her childhood by exploring the use of landscapes as an expressive tool within the notion of conceptual self-portraiture. Creating digital montages which incorporated remnants of varying photographic subjects, Shawotsky was therefore able to create a present visual representation of some of her past reverie memories. The photographic layers she incorporated into these images can be interpreted as representing the stored sensory mediatory information of the memory she recalled, whilst also referencing the complex memory pathway her mind underwent throughout the process of independent recollection. These created memory images also challenge the personal subjective relationship associated with memory through the combination of features, including photographic layers and text, which allow a number of viewers to gain an understanding of the personal memory depicted. However, returning to the idea of using photographs as personal memory triggers, why has this discussion focused solely on landscape photographs as an example of traces of the past? Although photographs have been previously identified as powerful memory triggers through the idea of the photographic trace, landscapes in themselves also act as key triggers of memory. Bearing in mind that landscapes are concepts of cultural relativity and are interpreted in a vast number of ways, this idea stems from the main assumption behind the success of the mnemonic strategy called the method of loci. This memorization technique works on the generalized premise that individuals best remember memories, including reverie memories, through their association with different places. In accordance with this theory, Francis Yates discusses the power of place as memory triggers through stating, "For when we return to a place after a considerable absence, we not merely recognise the place itself, but remember things that we did there, and recall the persons whom we met, and even the unuttered thoughts which passed through our minds when we were there before." So why is it suggested that individuals best remember memories through their association with different places? This proposition relates to theories surrounding the sensory information that is collected, encoded, and stored at the time of the past event. As landscapes produce a diverse range of sensory experiences, when an individual is confronted with a visual representational landscape memory trigger, their mind can therefore search through a wider pool of associated mediatory information, creating an expanded memory pathway, which can result in the quicker recollection of the relevant reverie memory. Landscapes in their own sense can also act as a mediator to memory when an individual recognises a landscape photograph as a personal memory trigger. In other words, when an individual views an image of a familiar landscape, the visual representational memory trigger, their mind then associates the image with the physical landscape captured within the photo. Once this first mediatory step has occurred, the mind begins to recall the associated information the individual encountered within the physical landscape at the time of this documented past experience. This therefore means that through the use of the landscape subject as a memory pathway mediator, landscape image memory triggers can allow the individual's mind to progress down an intensified memory pathway, resulting in the recollection of a denser altered memory. Michael Levin briefly investigates these ideas of landscapes as memory triggers and sensory memory pathways throughout his project War Story. By retracing the journey his father embarked on during his assignment to cover the Jewish story throughout the war, Levin used this project to expand upon his father's World War II memories by creating a visual narrative to accompany his father's writings. considering ideas surrounding landscapes and memory, Levin examined remembrance by recognising and adopting his father's landscape memory triggers in order to explore whether natural landscapes could hold memories or traces of the past. Although primarily focusing on his father's story, this project also provided Levin with the opportunity to reconnect to his lost loved one by encountering similar locational sensory inputs. This allowed Levin to experience a psychological sense of drifting back that is associated with an episode of reverie, through supplying him with the useful information that aided the empathising and imaginative understanding of his father's past journey. The final exhibition pieces, which included a combination of Levin's photographs, a selection of his father's writings, and photographs from the original trip, offer a similarity between Levin and Schwartzky's work by allowing the viewers to gain an understanding of the personal memory and reconnection aspects of the project. So, through the use of landscape photographs, how can people reconnect to their lost loved ones? However much people may fear the pain of the absent, over the years, as they slowly grow accustomed to their loss, they can begin to understand that the presence of these individuals is forever stored within their personal reverie memories. Although memories have the tendency to fade and alter over time, appearing to become inaccessible through their storage in an individual's pre-consciousness, people have the ability to locate these traces of the past through the recognition of present representational memory triggers. These memory triggers begin the process of independent recollection by activating the retrieval of stored associated information as the mind progresses through a pre-conscious memory pathway. This results in the constructed recollection of the altered reverie memory, which offers them the opportunity to experience psychologically the long-desired presence of those that they miss. Landscape photographs are just one of these many different memory triggers that can direct people down this fabricated path of remembrance towards their stored reverie memories. However, through combining the residual and immersive characteristics from both photographs and landscapes, they can be identified as a very effective tool for recollection. Incorporating the photograph's ability to freeze a moment in time, creating a trace of the past through a visual representation, as well as its association to the range of sensory experiences encountered within its landscape subjects, landscape photographs enable individuals to mentally experience remnants of the past, resulting in the recollection of a denser adapted reverie memory. Landscape photographs, when being used as a tool for remembrance, therefore have the capability to direct individuals down a pathway to the past, reconnecting people to those they have lost. Thank you.
Do you have any questions for Holly? You mentioned the term altered fragmented memories. What do you mean by this?
Okay, I was actually going to include this within my essay, but I soon realised that it could actually make a whole essay in itself, or in fact actually a dissertation. So when looking at altered memories, basically what I mean by this is that when you recollect a memory, you don't recollect it in its pure form, so it's remembered differently from how the event actually took place. So this is because of like an individual's imagination, so that comes into play. So for example, an individual's imagination can put two different memories together to create one altered memory. In relation to fragmented memories, as you saw from my presentation, when you are introduced to a memory trigger, you do not recollect the whole memory at once. So your mind travels through this memory pathway into the pre-consciousness, picking out different bits of associated information to create this one kind of, this fragmented memory. Best way I can kind of describe that is that it's kind of like a memory jigsaw, in the sense that your mind pulls out these pieces of the memory and then places them together to create this kind of like unfinished memory puzzle jigsaw, if that makes sense.
Are there any more questions?
You said that landscapes are interpreted differently. What did you mean by that?
Okay, so that was when I said that landscapes are concepts of cultural relativity, So basically what I mean by this is that depending on the culture that is encountering the landscape, they will interpret it differently. So for example, Europeans will see a landscape as something that is observed, so they're separate from it and they view it. Whereas like First Nation individuals, such as Canadian Aboriginals, will see landscapes as something that they exist inside of.
So that memory memories are pleasant and positive. I want to know, what about negative memories?
That's a very good question, because at the beginning of the essay I specifically made sure that I said that they are usually associated with pleasant past experiences, because you're right, they can easily be associated to the more negative experiences, because an individual can drift back, experience a sense of drifting back to a more negative past experience. But obviously, in relation to what I'm looking at with reconnecting people to their loved ones, I wanted to focus primarily on the more pleasant reverie memories.
Are there any more questions? Thank you.